Hey guys, welcome to class again after such a long time off. It's been an interesting period, I'm sure, for all of you. In fact, hey, this is a little bit interesting too, isn't it? I'm sitting here on campus, right? Campus, WCTC, where am I? Over here, right? Of course. Uh, so hopefully you can tell this is a terrible, terrible green screen effect, but I thought it'd be fun, right? We'll play around a little bit. But realistically here, I'm sure, are not oblivious to the fact that we've had sort of a really strange period here. A number of you have reached out to me, and I guess I just want to say right away, I really appreciate all of the messages that I've received. I know that some of you have really been struggling with some of the things going on in your own lives, and I've tried to be conscious of that. You probably have noticed that the due dates on some of these assignments have changed just ever so slightly. But that said, you've probably also noticed that we can't keep pushing due dates, unfortunately. So I recognize everybody is struggling and everybody has really worked hard. So I do appreciate all the effort that you've gone to. So that's really fantastic. And we'll talk about some more of this in a second, but I just really wanted to get that out of the way because I think that's the sort of big elephant in the room, right? We've all really been struggling with a lot of different things. Me struggling with shaving, obviously. So I haven't been sitting here at home. I know you can't tell because obviously this effect is so amazing, but I am at my house. So I guess I should also say that if there's some background noise, if there's some things going on, I have a couple of dogs, I have a number of children, I have my wife here. So if anything gets real crazy, hopefully we can manage that. I'm not going to go to the trouble of editing these videos and making them all super duper professional or anything. You know what we are, you know who we are, but hopefully this provides a lot of value to you. I'm really doing this because I don't want everybody to have to sit in front of their computer for 4 hours. This will not be a 4-hour video, so don't worry about that. But what I'm planning on doing here is I'm going to share some video. We'll go through a couple things here in just a second. We'll talk about some administrative type things, and then we'll go through the assignments like we do typically in class. You're free to get up at any time and take your own break. I'm not going to announce breaks. Hopefully this will just be sort of a quick thing. So I don't know if there's anything else apart from some of the administrative stuff here, but let's just make sure that we're all staying in contact. We're all being good communicators. We're talking about what's going on. So I do really appreciate everybody and everybody's effort. So I've tried to be good about making sure that we all have good time management and that I'm being communicative as well. So, hey, let's go, speaking of that, let's go through some of that. What I'm gonna do here then is I'm just gonna share my screen and we'll go through some of that content on the campus. So first of all, I hope what you have seen, what you've noticed, is that I did put out an announcement. So probably most importantly, you should have gotten this in your email as well, but you can see here that the class will now end on June 1st. So that's definitely something different. It probably won't affect us too much because we have got our final, and sort of interestingly, the problem that we're going to have is that our final is typically intended to be a group project. Now I know in this environment a group project might be a little bit challenging, but we'll have to see what we do with that because maybe we can do video, maybe we can do something. It really does work better. I take that back. Maybe we can do it as a single project. We'll have to see. I think we might be able to do it as a single project. Speaking of that, I did open up all of the assignments. We'll get here in a second. But I did that really because I want everybody able to manage their time. I know some of us are probably having more challenges managing our time than in the past. So let's make sure that once all the assignments are opened up like they are, you're free to work on them as you can. Please don't be surprised if I do submit comments on your assignments then, if you've worked well ahead about maybe refactoring and doing some things, because I figure if you have a little bit of time, maybe you can do that. So, all right. So please feel free to read these announcements. Please click on the links, see if you have any questions, okay? Reach out if you do. Email or Zoom also, like this is Zoom in case you're not aware. Zoom is mentioned in here. So if you have any questions about how to use Zoom, go to this link, this wctc.zoom.us. And I know one of the students already has reached out to me. Thank you very much for that, by the way, on Zoom, and it seemed to work pretty well. We were able to share a screen and go through code, so that was pretty handy. I did work with another person today for quite a while on making sure that we could have multiple people in a room at a time. So in addition to just simple individual meetings. We could also have small group meetings if that would help, if there's a number of you that really want to reach out and do that. So I don't have a problem with that either. But of course, you're free to do that amongst yourselves as well. All right, so last thing I guess I'll say is we did update the calendar here. So I try to go through and make sure that not only are the due dates and things in here, but I also put the classes remaining so you can sort of schedule for that. But you'll notice that now our final due date is going to be that June 1st. So that will be when the final is due. So if we take a look here, I should be able to go ahead to June. And on June 1st is our last class, and this is when the final project is due, okay? All right. So what are we doing? Well, we've got, I'm gonna close these down. What we've got here is our course modules, and you probably noticed right away that a lot of these now have an April 6th due date, and I did that, which is tomorrow, by the way, or today, depending on when you're seeing this video. So make sure that you're getting these in. So there are quite a few of you yet that have not submitted these assignments, and they are worth quite a bit of points. You'll see that this one here, this one that's due tomorrow is worth 300 points. So please don't miss out on quite a bit of points. This 300 points is enough to drop you 1 or maybe even 2 letter grades. So make sure you do not miss out on these points. We have a couple of assignments here that are worth a significant amount of points. This one here, this EF1, and the other one that's coming up here in a little bit, it's another 300 points due on April 20th. So granted, you have a couple of weeks for that, but don't miss out on that, okay? All right, so today you'll probably see, we don't have really an assignment necessarily due as part of homework here. There's a quiz, so make sure you do take this quiz. Once again, as in the past, you will have a couple of opportunities to take that, so don't feel don't feel that you can't do that, okay? All right. Apologize, gotta clear my throat here. All right, so what we're gonna do is, this is really for your own benefit, is to go through this Git and GitHub. So I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time here, but I know a number of you have expressed some concerns about Git and some of the challenges around Git. So this is all put together for you guys. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and we'll take a look at some of the things here, like this is due tomorrow, granted, but we did go through this prior to this big long break. But I think what I'll do is, just for refreshers, we'll go through this again, just a little bit at a high level about how to pull this down, what the expectations are here, this blogs console. And then also when we look at this one coming up here, we'll touch on this a little bit, okay? So this is where I would pause and ask if there were any questions, but because you can't tell me you have questions, please send an email or reach out to me via text or any of the other ways that you can get a hold of me, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is we will go out here to GitHub, and I put this link here, this GitHub blogs console. It's here, and it's also, did I put it up here? I think it's up here in the description. So if you take a look in the assignment here, I know many of you have already looked at this, so you can do that as well. But let's open it up here because I just happen to have it handy here. And what I would like to do is we will take a look at how to pull this down, this blogs console. And I'm just going to use quick git bash because you know that's probably the easier way to go here. So I know in a video, typically we want to make sure that we have a lot of not pauses or anything, but we have to wait for the screen to open. So you're gonna have to be a little bit patient. My computer is not as fast, honestly, as the one that we have on campus. So, but all right, so we're gonna pull down this blog console here. I'm gonna grab this clone or download. I'm gonna copy the link. And then I think what I will do is quick change to a different directory here that I have set up. Let's go here. So I'm calling this lesson 9. All right, I apologize if that's too small. I tried to increase the resolution, by the way, on these videos. So just as an aside, please make sure, give me some feedback on these videos. And if you find that they're not of good resolution, or you can't hear me, or something's wrong, please let me know that. This is obviously a learning experience for everybody. So I apologize if it's breaking up a little bit. I did notice that earlier when I was getting notifications on my device that it was cutting out the audio. So I hope I fixed that, but no promises here. I apologize. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a git clone here real quick. Git clone, and I'm going to grab that URL. This is that URL for that blog console, and I'm just going to pull this down. And what we'll do then is we should notice that inside of my directory here, inside of this lesson 9, we can see that it is going to pull this down. So here it is right here. By default, as we know, it creates it with the name of the directory, this blogs console, the name of the repository. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this up, and I'm just going to double click on my blogs console. Okay, so we should see that open up here in a minute, probably honestly a minute because my computer is a little slow. All right, so as we're opening this up, a couple things I want to point out is notice that inside of the solution is actually this appconfig.txt. Hopefully you can see that. And this appconfig.txt, if you remember, this was the one that was just simply that template. So if I open this up inside of Notepad, there wasn't a whole lot in here. It was just a, sorry, I got a couple of screens going on here, so I have to move things around. But if you remember, this was really just that simple template, okay? So make sure when you fill this out, you fill it out with your own information. You'll have to enter your database name, your user ID, and your password, okay? And I know that we're not submitting that to our applications because of the way that the gitignore is set up, but when we do that, what I would recommend doing is you'll probably notice at the top level, if I go up one level here, I did save off an app config here of my own. So if I just drag that into my own here and open this up, you'll see I did just simply save that, so I don't have to keep typing it in. So that's really the only difference here, is that the database name, the username, and the password I've updated and just saved that file off, okay? All right, so let me bring this up. And then what do you do with that when it's open? All right, so what we have here is, you'll notice I've got a couple of files here. So if I click on this app.config right now, there is no app config that exists inside of my project. All right, and you can verify that because if we look inside of the project here, there is no app config. There's an appconfig.txt, and if we open that, that's the same file that we just looked at in Notepad. Okay, this one right here, it's the same thing. So I'll close this. We don't need to keep this open. But the idea is that it's the same. And typically what you would do is you would have to come in and you would have to open this guy up. Oh, I apologize, my phone is giving me a problem here. All right. So you have to come in and edit this, but because I saved off in the memory, I can just copy that guy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna copy it and paste it right into the first one here and paste it in. So you might wonder why, if it's not in this directory, why is it here? Well, that's because this file is identified as part of the solution. Just because it doesn't happen to be here doesn't mean it's not going to be loaded as a file, which is maybe a little bit confusing. And I think this might have bitten some of you when you're loading out those CSV files, because it assumed that you had a file that was part of your project, even though that file wasn't really probably makes sense. But because I copied this into here now, this app config, wherever it went, app.config, now I click on it. Before it wasn't there, but now if I click on it, there it is, right? So a couple things, let's see, I think I had gone through all of the around these files, and let me get this figured out, just a refresher here. If I apologize, this computer is a little slow. Oh boy, now I'm in trouble. This is probably where I should pause the video, and I should, and we should, oh boy, let's see, am I gonna have to do that? Am I have to pause the video? Did I totally lock up my own computer? All right. So a couple of things, like I was trying to say here before my computer decided to give me a problem. If you aren't sure what your SQL Server is, remember we can open up these SQL Server Object Explorers and we can take a look and see. And we kind of ran through real quickly how to connect to this. So I'm not going to do that again. If you have questions or if you're having problems with that, please reach out. But effectively, I can come in here now and look at my database, and you can see I have a number of them. You won't have this many. It's really just because of the fact that I've taught this class for a while and I've got a bunch of databases and things. But this is the one that I'm using. You can in fact even see this, the CRN is what I use. So I recommend you do that if you haven't done that yet. But when we come now into the tables, and this will take just a second because I'm connecting over the internet to verify what tables and things are in here. Right now, because I've run this application in the past, really I'm just going to have a couple of tables, and you can see it's blogs and posts. We'll get into this migration history later, but it has to do with automatic migrations, but we'll deal with that later, like I said. So blogs and posts. So in fact, when I'm running your applications and I'm testing your own applications, guys, what I'm doing is I'm taking this app config and I'm copying it into your solutions, and then I'm running your application. So it is connecting to my database. So if I were to open this right now, I could even see some of the entries that I've used for testing your applications inside of here. So just know that's how that's working. So that's because you are not providing me your app config, but I should be able to test it against my own database. It shouldn't matter, right? Okay. All right, so again, if I come in now and I just want to run this, so I'm just going to program.cs, I'm just going to open that up and I'm just going to run this. All right, so if I hit start. And remember, you saw me clone this, so I cloned this thing down, and all I did was I added my app config, this app.config, and I'm going to run it. And then once this finally runs, what we should see is it should come up and it will be able to connect to the database without any additional work, okay? So I know some of you were maybe having a little bit of problem with that, but there isn't really any additional work you have to do. So if you're struggling with that right now, download it, clone it brand new, like you saw me do. Make sure you set up your app config like we just did, and then run the application, okay? So you can see here, this is opening up. And eventually, what we'll see, I think I'm gonna have to change my background to a beach or something so you can see me sitting on the beach, at least I can pretend. All right, so here it goes. It runs now, enter a name for a new blog. Okay, I'm just gonna call it test blog, and we'll put in test blog Mark or something, okay? And I'm just gonna hit enter. And what we should see is, it probably isn't going to do too much because this application is very simple, okay? But all it did was it dumped out all the blogs in the database, and you probably saw some names go by there. But if we come over here now and we take a look at the database, I'm going to right-click on blogs. So now that I've navigated to my specific database, down to the tables, to this specific blogs table, right-click on it and choose View Data. And I'd encourage you to do this as well if you're not sure that your code is working like you'd expect. What we should be able to see now is the blog that I just created along with other test data. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm using this for your own test stuff. You can see I've tested a few of yours. But here's my test blog, Mark, that one I just created. So we know it's working, all right? So hopefully that helps you out in getting your application started. There isn't really a whole lot of work there because the one that you download here, there's not much going on. It's really this, enter a name, blog added, all blogs in the database. So as far as the assignment's concerned, I think a number of you have this pretty well handled, but why don't we go through that real quick and make sure that there aren't any questions on that. Okay, so we're back. What I wanted to do here was I wanted to show you really quick is this idea that on assignment 8, this is the one that's due tomorrow, of course, display all blogs, add blog, and create post. Okay, so most of you have had no problem with this. You haven't, I don't think any of you have had too many problems with this. The one thing that's sort of a gotcha on this, and I know I did mention this before, is that recall that the post has to be associated with a specific blog, okay? And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look, you remember this blog post ERD that's part of this right here. There is this entity relationship diagram that will show you the relationships that are expected between these two. Now, I know this is sort of a refresher, but I'm just going through this because it's been quite a while since we looked at it in any framework, all right? And we will be playing around with this blog and post thing for a little bit, which means that we're going to be looking at a little bit of other functionality, okay? So if we look though, we can see, let me zoom in a minute. We can see that this post has a relationship back to blog, all right? And we talked about this with the one-to-many, okay? So a blog can have many posts and a post has to have one. It's not a zero-to-many, it's a one-to-many, right? So it has to have a blog, okay? And those are represented, if you remember, inside of the code by the fact that there's a blog here. Okay, this blog has a blog ID, and remember this ID, this naming convention means that any framework knows that it's going to be the key for the table. There's also the name and then posts, and this was that list of posts, okay? So blog can't exist without a post, all right? But if we look at post is not nullable. It does have to have right here, if this was nullable, right? If we made this into a nullable thing, the blog ID, that would mean that it could be null, but meaning it wouldn't have to have a blog, but in this case it does, okay? So some of you did have a problem with that in your code where you were trying to save the post without the associated blog ID. So make sure You're going out and you're getting the specific blog that you want to associate it with, okay? Which means inside of your code, you'll have to do something like a .where in order to find out which specific blog you want, right? So we can easily do that by going into our program. Just like here, we wanted to list out the number of blogs, see? List all the blogs in the database. One thing, another important thing that I want to point out is look at the return type here. This is, in this case, it's an I ordered queryable. If you were to do like a where clause or something here, this one is ordering by name, okay? But if we wanted to do, let's try this. We want to say get our result, for instance, db.blogs.where, and we want to ask the user which specific one do you want to load. This is where we would say b.blog ID, and we'd ask the user to enter that blog ID, right? And we could say where the blog ID equals some user input. I'll just hard code it for now to 1, just for example, okay? But this is something you'd want to get from your user. But let's look at the result, the return type here. What is that? It's an I queryable, all right? That means it is not something that you can just output. This is not actually the blog, the specific blog that's being returned. It's actually an I queryable. It's a collection of the potential blogs that could be returned, because remember, if we talk about a where clause, it is actually returning the full list, okay? Because a where could be 1 or many, right? Or 0, really. So what can we do in this case? Well, we can say dot first or default. So that means return the first thing you find. But as I mentioned in class, we can change it from the where to the first or default. We can just take that first or default and just put it here, and that's easy enough. It's the same thing, all right? But let's look and see now, what is it returning? It's now returning a blog, okay? But remember, this is the full blog object. And what is the blog object? Well, the blog object is the blog ID, the name, and the posts, okay? So we can't just simply dump out this result and expect it to return to show what we want, because we have to say, what do we want to return? Result dot what? Dot blog ID, dot name, okay? For instance. So we could dump that out. We could dump this out to the user screen and say, oh, this is the one that you chose, right? And that's fine. But what happens then when we want to create a post, okay? Create a post. Oops, let me fix that here. So we say, right here, we're gonna say create a post. So we're gonna ask the user then for that specific post. So we have to create a brand new post, and I'll just do it simply here, post equals new post. Hopefully some of this is a refresher for you guys, but post dot, and we're gonna ask the user for some content. This is my content. Of course, we'll ask the user for this. We're not going to hard code this in our actual code. Post dot, what else do we want? Post dot title, okay? Equals title, some sort of title, my title, all right? Okay, but the really important thing is, how do we establish that relationship between the post and the blog? Well, we have to make sure that we set this blog ID, because that's the foreign key, remember. And where do we get that blog ID from? Well, it's from this thing here that we did. We said, go out and find the blog that the user wanted to associate this post with. That's a question we have to ask the user. Well, in that case, we have this result here. So let's do result dot, and maybe we could change that name into something a little more intuitive, like user blog selection or something like that, right? User blog selection. That might be a good, nice, long descriptive name. Okay, so we can take that variable then and say the user blog selection dot blog ID. That's the thing that we want. So then when we save this whole post, this brand new post that we created, then it's just telling me it could potentially be null, which is true. It could be null because maybe 1 doesn't exist. So, but in this case, when we save off that post, then that way the user, all the requirements are met by the user. The user filled all this information out. They actually filled out the content, filled out the title, and selected the blog through a choice that we asked them to make. And then when we save that post, it will show up in the database fine, okay? So hopefully that helps you out in completing this assignment. I know a lot of you have already got this done. I just want to make sure there wasn't any confusion and that we hadn't forgot all of our information about how Entity Framework works. We're going to be digging into this a lot more, and we're going to be talking about a lot more of the guts of Entity Framework. And in fact, we're going to have to create some of our own tables. If you remember, I know it's been a little while, but if you go back and refer back to some of the old modules, you'll see that there was a video in there about database first versus model first. Now, of course, this is model first, right? Because we have our models, we have our blog and our post, and we just ran our application. We just ran this program here. And then when we ran the program, referencing this context, it created the database for us. We didn't do anything. Well, moving forward, what we're going to do is we'll play with this blog and post a little bit more, but what we're going to do is we're going to create our database first, and then we're going to have Entity Framework look at our database and generate all the models for us. So that'll be kind of a nice turnaround and see how this really works. We'll get a better handle on that. I guess I should say, I don't know if I ever mentioned this blogging context. When we created this context, one thing that's kind of important to understand in here is the one thing that's maybe a little unique is this name equals blog context. So if you're having any problems where your database is not connecting or it's not seeing something, or you're getting an error about blog context not existing, notice that this blog context name here, if we look at the app config, look at this, here's that name, blog context, okay? That's where that comes from. So when we look at the context and it's referencing a specific name, okay, that is referring to the connection string name inside of our app config, okay? That's this guy here, all right? So by default, if we don't specify this, by the way, guys, it will use the name of our context class here, okay, this blogging context, but it's kind of nice in order to have the name slightly different, only because sometimes that causes a lot of confusion for students. They find out that the name of this thing here in app config happens to be called blogging context. And then they say, well, why is it not working? Because I have it named blogging context, or right? And you think you can just go in and change one or the other and have it work. It doesn't work that way, okay? So it can cause a little bit of confusion. So just know that this name here is actually the name in the app config, and this is a class. Obviously, I hope that's obvious. There's a class here, class blog context, okay? Blogging context. All right, so that's where that comes from. We're gonna look at that quite a bit more in the future. If you're looking ahead, like I happened to mention, you should note that there is these assignments in here that I've gone to the trouble of opening them all up. All right, I've got dates around them all. So don't be afraid to look ahead if that's something you really want to do. Don't feel you have to, but you're more than welcome to look ahead. All right, so this one that we just looked at today was sort of a refresher, but I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. So if we look here, you'll see that we have this Git here that was really there for your own reference, but really what I was looking at today was this blog console that we looked at before. So so hopefully you don't have any questions on that, but feel free to work ahead. Again, that's for your reference, but don't miss the quiz. Don't miss this here that we need. Class 10, this is the one that we're going to be working towards. There's this assignment. It's due on April 20th. Feel free to look at that. It's really extending that blogs and posts that we just looked at and adding some additional functionality in there for displaying the posts. And then even as you look ahead further to that, it's again blogs and posts. So this is going all the way out to May 4th. This is again doing edit and delete. So this functionality here, the points come down a little just because by now we've sort of got our handle on this. So, but don't miss out on the fact that we're doing blogs and posts for quite a while. So not until once we get into May do we really start looking at some of the Northwind stuff. So this is a lot more complicated. So don't feel, even though it is open, it is published, don't feel that you have to work ahead this far. In fact, you don't have to work ahead at all. I'll be releasing a video like this every week, so you get to see the video, and we'll step through some of this content. So the next one I'm going to try to make a little more traditional. We're going to go through assignments a little more like we do in class. I just wanted to make this one, get everybody used to the format, let you throw out any questions, give me any feedback on the video. Kind of make it a refresher, okay? So I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, again, as always, please reach out. And I hope you guys are all staying safe. I hope you're able to get through all these assignments. I know I sent out the announcement. Please make sure you're getting them in April 6th. That's tomorrow. or today, depending on when you're seeing this. Make sure you get all this stuff done. We really want to move forward ahead with this entity framework stuff, and we're going to be talking about this a lot more. Okay. We do potentially have some in-class things that we can work on. I have not created those things because we aren't typically, we're not technically in class here. Normally we'd have lab work, but I may assign some sort of lab work too, just to make sure that we're all able to exercise these things and make sure we understand. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all your time spent watching this video. I hope it wasn't too long and wordy, and I hope it provides some value to you guys. Please give me feedback on this. Let me know if you have any questions. All right. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.